so today we're going to be making a stained glass watercolor. So it's kind of like a faux stained glass where we're going to design it like a stained glass, but we're going to be painting it with watercolor. And what we're really practicing with this is thinking about line in a different way. And also we're going to be doing a lot of wet on wet techniques with our watercolor, because this you kind of just paint in a section. So like with this dragonfly, this one's a watercolor, and the white, you could actually use like masking fluid to protect it, or we may just practice painting, you know, inside each section, because as long as your sections aren't super teeny tiny, it's relatively easy to kind of paint around it. And for this, y'all can decide, you know, if you want to do one of these exactly, you can always copy it. Or a lot of times if you just Google like stained glass butterfly or stained glass, you know, you'll get some ideas of how you want it to look, or you can look at a different picture. So like this was my example with my other class, and I looked at pictures of poppies, and then what you have to do is kind of simplify the shapes where, because you know, like little details in the poppy, like those tiny little black, I want to call them seeds, but I know that says tiny little black pollinators. I kind of turned just kind of it into the outline of the shape instead of having all those little details, because with stained glass, it's normally a little bit more geometric and more kind of broken up into shapes. So what I would want to do first is, before I even start thinking about it as stained glass, is I would very lightly just start drawing whatever subject you want to do, and then you can turn it into stained glass from that. So like, let's say I wanted to do the poppy flowers. So, but you could do tulips, you could do candy, I don't know. There's probably no limit to the possibilities of what you could do with this. So what I would want to do is like, okay, let's say I'm doing poppies. I would want to plan out very lightly. This is like a very light pencil, like an H. So I'm just lightly drawing, you know, out how many flowers I want to do and the relative size. This helps me to make sure I have enough like objects in here. Like this one, they put 4, but they also have leaves. You know, so I could just do 3, because 3 is typically a nice odd number that works well for art. And then from there, I would want to start drawing the petals. Now with the petals, you want to try and think of them like individual shapes, you know, kind of breaking it up. Like if this one is going to go this way, I'm not really going to see the center of the flower. It may just kind of be kind of cupped like that. And then once we get our main drawing done, then I'm going to talk about how we're going to turn it into a stained glass. And then if you wanted to draw something that's a little bit more symmetrical, like maybe a butterfly or a bee or a moth, what I would recommend is, normally I'll draw a line for where the middle of my bug is going to be. And then from there is normally where I create the body. And then if I wanted to try and draw both sides, then a lot of times I'll put a line for where I want the top of the wing and the bottom of the wing. And then I'll create it at the same time out of shapes. So the other way you could do it is you could just draw one side, and once you're happy with that, you could just trace that side onto the other side. So if you draw it dark enough, a lot of times you can even see it through a window. So that's how I draw, like, you know, butterfly, a bee, anything like that. All right. And then once you have your drawing finished, what you want to start doing is, so this one's already pretty simplified. So it's pretty easy to turn it into stained glass. So what I want to do next is I have to think about in between each shape, so even each petal, I want to have like kind of an outline, but it's going to be a thicker outline because we don't want to have just one line. We're really kind of making room for a space in between. That's basically going to be the white of our paper. So just like how on this one, they have the black, you know, which is probably the metal, or I've even seen some people do this technique where they use like black glue to make it look like stained glass. So that's kind of the same thing. So for each piece, you're kind of thinking about if you broke it apart, how you would make it out of different pieces. So a lot of that is just, you know, where I have a line, I'm just making a second line and then erasing where it meets the outside. So, and once I do that, then I can start thinking about my background. Now I still haven't put like stems in here. I would want to do that. And then one way you can do a background is you could just do almost like outlining, where I just do like little geometric shapes that outline over and over again. Or I could, you know, create things in the background, like how this one, they've done like lily pads and flowers and grass. You could do that, or you could just do, you know, just random geometric shapes all behind it. So, and that's what you want to go ahead and do. You don't have to make this one too detailed. Like if I just want to have maybe my objects planned out, and then I could transfer it and then do this. If you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to have to trace this after I drew it all over again. You could always just, you know, finish this part, then transfer it. So like this is mine after I transferred. I actually transferred this one with transfer paper because I was being lazy versus this one I went a little bit lighter. And if you mess up when you transfer, you could always do it again. And this one, I kind of just did the geometric kind of thing. And to transfer your drawing, what you want to do is take like a 6B pencil on the back, all over the drawing. And then I would put it down onto my watercolor paper, and you would want to put like little pieces of tape just to hold it still. And then wherever I push down, we'll put it onto the watercolor paper. Now, if I can use a very light touch, then using transfer paper or carbon paper is perfectly fine. The only tricky part is if you're trying to erase or lighten it, a lot of times you can't. So that's why I like using the 6B method, just because it's way more easy to erase. So, and that's how we're going to do the drawing portion of this project.